Welcome to HardScript.
Help me reach 5,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. She said it like a warning, not a request. Standing in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes cold. No touching until I feel safe. I didn't yell. I didn't ask why. I just looked at her and said, cool. No rent until I feel wanted. That was the moment everything shifted. My name's Ryan Hale, 35, electrical engineer. I build systems that run without emotion, precise, controlled, predictable. My marriage used to be like that too, until the person on the other side started rewriting the code. Her name's Megan, 32, freelance writer, part-time activist, full-time perfectionist. We used to be that couple people looked at and said, they've got it figured out. We didn't. We just knew how to hide the bugs in our system better than most. When she dropped that line, I knew it wasn't about safety. It was about control. Over the past year, every argument had become a negotiation of power disguised as emotional growth. Boundaries, she called it. What she really meant was, I decide when you matter. So I decided to stop begging for updates. I didn't touch her, didn't text her during work, didn't ask about dinner. I just started pulling my weight, and only mine. The rent, the utilities, the insurance. Her name was on half the lease, so I treated it like half her responsibility. At first, she laughed, said, you're joking. When the first bill showed up unpaid, she didn't laugh. I kept quiet. That's the thing about silence. It unnerves people who live off reaction. She started testing me, leaving hints, staying out late, pretending she didn't notice when I slept facing the other way. I noticed everything. The new perfume, the password changes, the subtle, nervous glances when her phone buzzed at night. Still, I said nothing. I just kept track. By the third week, she stopped wearing her ring. By the fourth, she started asking if I was seeing someone else. That's when I realized something important. When a woman stops feeling wanted, she rewrites the story. When a man stops paying for it, the story falls apart. And Megan was about to learn what happens when silence becomes structure. The silence didn't scare me. It scared her. At first, she tried to fill it with noise, fake laughter on phone calls, sudden bursts of affection that felt rehearsed. She'd walk past me, drop a casual "you okay?" like she wanted to test the tension in the air. I'd nod, answer with one word, and go back to what I was doing. My calm became her chaos. Megan had always been the center of every room, every conversation. Now she wasn't even the center of our living room. The house felt different, cleaner, sharper, colder. She used to light candles in every corner, trying to make it smell like warmth. I blew them out one by one. I didn't need warmth anymore. I needed clarity. The second month, she missed another rent payment. Said she had a few projects pending. I said nothing. I just sent a polite reminder through our joint budgeting app. No emojis, no comment, just numbers. She didn't respond. But that night, she cooked dinner for the first time in weeks. Overcooked pasta. Forced conversation. Her attempt at repair. I let her talk. About work, her new friends, her podcast idea. She smiled too much and looked at me too often, searching for approval. I didn't give it. I just listened and chewed. Later, she tried to touch my arm. I didn't pull away. I just looked at her hand resting there, and after a second, she removed it herself. That moment was quiet, but it hit louder than any fight we'd ever had. The next morning, I left early for work. When I got home, she was gone. Her laptop, a few clothes, and the framed photo from our anniversary, all missing. She left a note on the counter. I need space to think. I didn't chase her. I simply updated the lease account to reflect full rent responsibility in her name, just as she demanded independence. Days passed. No calls. No texts. Then, one evening, she showed up again. Same doorway, same cold stare. But this time, her voice cracked when she said, we need to talk. And that's when I knew space didn't bring her peace. It brought her reflection. And reflection can destroy someone who's been living off illusion. When she came back, she didn't look angry. She looked scared. That was new. Megan never did fear, only control. She stood in the doorway again, clutching her phone like it was a shield. Her voice trembled when she said, we need to talk. I didn't move. I just nodded and let her talk. That's when the story came out, piece by piece, like a confession she didn't plan to give. She'd moved in with a friend, someone she used to know from a writing group. It started as crash for a few nights. then turned into "we're trying to see where this goes." Her words, not mine. But apparently, it didn't go anywhere. The friend kicked her out after a fight about money. That was 3 days ago. I didn't ask why she thought I'd care. I just watched her twist her ringless fingers, waiting for a reaction. There wasn't one. She said, "You've changed." I told her she just hadn't been paying attention. The silence stretched between us like glass. She tried to fill it again, talking about how things got confusing, how she needed time to heal, and how maybe she was finally ready to reconnect. I let her finish, then asked one question. "Did you pay your half of the rent?" She froze. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. That was the real conversation, the one behind all the words. That night, she stayed in the guest room. I didn't invite her. She just assumed. I didn't stop her either. I wasn't building walls or bridges. I was just letting gravity do its job. When people live off emotional manipulation, the absence of reaction feels like punishment. Over the next week, she started trying again. Cleaning the kitchen, making breakfast. Subtle touches. Small apologies hidden inside casual conversation. I let her, but I didn't engage. One night, she stood at my bedroom door and whispered, "Can I come in?" I looked up from my laptop and said quietly, "No touching until I feel wanted." Her face shifted, shock, then realization. Because for the first time, she understood what it felt like to lose control. And that's when the power balance finally changed. After that night, something shifted in the house. The air felt cleaner. Still cold, but clear. Megan stopped performing for attention and started existing in silence. The kind of silence she used to accuse me of creating. Only now, she was the one drowning in it. She began to move carefully, like she didn't want to disturb the balance. Cooking more, leaving notes on the counter instead of starting conversations. Sometimes, I'd catch her watching me from across the room. Not with anger, something closer to confusion. Maybe even regret. But regret doesn't fix broken systems. It just highlights what was never stable in the first place. By the second week, she started paying rent again. Quietly, through the app. No note, no explanation. Just numbers. The same ones she used to ignore. I noticed, but didn't acknowledge it. I wasn't interested in symbolic effort. I was measuring patterns. She began trying to re-enter my life through routine. Sitting next to me during dinner. Asking if I wanted to watch something together. Testing proximity, waiting for a signal. But I didn't give her one. One night, she said, "I feel like I'm invisible to you." I looked up from my laptop and said, "You made yourself visible to everyone else first." She didn't answer, just sat there, staring at the floor, holding her breath like she was waiting for something to break. It didn't. A few days later, I came home to find her crying quietly on the couch. No makeup, no performance. Just exhaustion. She said she'd been offered a writing job in Chicago, temporary, but far. She said she didn't know whether to take it. I told her I'd cover her half of the rent for 2 months if she left by the weekend. She blinked, shocked. I wasn't being cruel. I was giving her what she claimed to want, space. That night, she packed. The next morning, she stood in the doorway again, suitcase in hand. She said, "You didn't even ask me to stay." I looked her in the eyes and said, "You never asked if I wanted you to." She left without another word. And for the first time in months, the silence in the house didn't feel heavy. It felt earned. When she left, I didn't celebrate. I didn't pour a drink or call a friend. I just sat in the quiet and let the air settle. The apartment felt different, lighter, wider. Her perfume still lingered in the hallway, faint but stubborn, like a ghost refusing to move on. That weekend, I cleared out the last traces of her. Her books, her throw pillows, the plants she always forgot to water. I didn't throw them away. I boxed them neatly and labeled each one. Order replaces chaos. It's the only way I know how to rebuild. The following Monday, my life fell into rhythm again. Work, gym, sleep, no distractions. But silence, even earned silence, eventually echoes back. And sometimes, it brings company. 3 weeks later, she texted me. The message was simple. "Hey." I didn't reply. 2 days after that, another one came. "I made it to Chicago. The job's good. Miss you." Still nothing. Then came a photo. Not of her face. Of the coffee mug I used to take to work. The one she'd stolen after the breakup. Caption said, "Thought of you today." I left it unread. But she didn't stop. She started sending little updates. Pictures of the city. Things she was writing. random songs that reminded her of us. I never answered, but I noticed something in each message. The tone shifted, from pride to apology, from apology to plea. By the end of the second month, she called. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail anyway. Her voice was shaky. She said Chicago wasn't what she expected, that she thought independence would feel freeing, but it just felt cold. She said she couldn't sleep, that she missed the sound of me making coffee in the morning. I played it twice, then deleted it. That night, I slept better than I had in a year. Silence had done what arguments never could. It made her listen. And while she was chasing peace somewhere else, I'd already built mine right here, one quiet decision at a time. But I knew it wasn't over. People like Megan don't disappear. They orbit, waiting for gravity to pull them back. And I could feel the pull starting again. The pull came 3 months later. A random Thursday night. I was finishing a late project when my phone buzzed. Unknown number, Chicago area code. I ignored it at first, but it rang again. And again. Then a message came through. Please, just answer. It was her. I stared at the screen for a while before hitting play on the voicemail. Her voice was tired, thinner than I remembered. She said she was coming back to town, that she needed to see me in person, that she was sorry for everything. I didn't reply, but that night, for the first time in a while, I didn't sleep. 2 days later, she was standing outside my apartment. No warning, no call. Just there, same coat, same perfume, eyes red like she'd been crying for hours. She said she was staying with a friend nearby, but I could tell by the way she held her bag that she had nowhere else to go. I didn't invite her in. I just leaned against the doorframe and listened. She talked fast about how she'd lost her job, how her friend in Chicago had stopped talking to her, how she realized she took everything for granted. I kept my face still. Inside, though, something shifted. Not sympathy, not anger, just understanding. Megan wasn't here for love. She was here because she'd run out of noise. She said, I just want things to feel normal again. I told her, they are normal. For me. That stopped her. The silence stretched long enough to hurt. Then she whispered, Please, Ryan, don't shut me out. I stepped back, opened the door halfway, and said, You can come in, but the rent's due at the end of the month. Her expression flickered between shock and confusion, then something like shame. She nodded and stepped inside. That night, we didn't talk. She took the guest room again. I worked late, but while she slept, I sat in my office and opened a new file on my laptop. Title, Pattern Analysis, Megan. Because I wasn't falling back into old habits. I was documenting them. Quiet doesn't mean surrender. It means preparation. The next few weeks felt like living with a stranger who was trying to act familiar. Megan tiptoed around the apartment like she was afraid to touch anything that wasn't hers anymore. She'd wake up early, make coffee for 2, then wait for me to join her. I never did. I preferred the silence. She started leaving notes again, on the fridge, on my desk, even in my jacket pocket. Thank you for letting me stay. Dinner's in the oven. You don't have to forgive me, but I hope you do. Each one perfectly worded, like she was auditioning for forgiveness. I didn't respond to any of them. I didn't have to. By the second week, she began to open up more. Stories about her job loss, her loneliness, her regrets. She tried to draw sympathy out of me, but what she didn't understand was that I'd already spent years feeling sorry for her. Now I was just watching, collecting data. Late one night, I caught her in my office. She was sitting at my desk, scrolling through my laptop. When she noticed me, she jumped up, mumbling something about checking emails. But I could see the open document on the screen, my file. The one labeled Pattern Analysis, Megan. She froze. Her eyes darted between me and the laptop, panic rising. She asked what it was. I told her the truth. It's a record of everything you've done since you came back. She whispered, You're keeping score? I said, No, I'm keeping clarity. She didn't say another word, just walked to her room and closed the door. The next morning, she was gone again. But this time, she didn't take her things. She left everything, clothes, laptop, even her phone charger, like she'd run out of energy to perform. That night, I sat at the table, staring at her untouched coffee mug. Part of me wondered if that was finally it, the last exit. But then, just after midnight, my phone lit up with a message from her number. No words, just a photo. It was her, sitting in her car outside the apartment. Headlights off, waiting. And that's when I realized she didn't come back for me. She came back because she couldn't stand losing control. I watched her headlights flicker once before she killed the engine. I didn't move. I just sat in the dark and waited. Minutes passed, maybe more. Then came the soft knock on the door. 3 taps, quiet but deliberate. When I opened it, she was standing there, soaked from the rain. Hair clinging to her face, makeup gone, hands shaking. She said she didn't know where else to go. I believed her. But belief doesn't mean invitation. I told her she could come in, but only to get her things. She stepped past me anyway, like old habits still owned her. I let it happen. Sometimes silence isn't about control, it's about exposure. When people fill the air long enough, they reveal what they're trying to hide. She started pacing, talking fast. Said she couldn't sleep, couldn't think, couldn't handle the quiet anymore. That Chicago was a lie. That her new life had collapsed the moment she lost my attention. Every word spilled like confession, but none of it sounded like truth. It sounded like desperation wearing apology as a disguise. When she finally stopped, she asked, "What do you want from me?" I said, "Nothing. That's the part you can't understand." The silence that followed was heavy, like she finally realized I wasn't her audience anymore. She whispered, "You used to need me." I looked at her and said, "No, I used to believe I did." Her eyes filled, but no tears fell. Just the kind of hollow look you get when you realize the story's already been written without you. She packed quietly after that. Clothes, laptop, a few books. She didn't ask for help, and I didn't offer it. Before she left, she turned and said, "You'll regret this one day." I told her, "Maybe, but at least it'll be my choice." She walked out without another word. For a long time after, I stood by the window, watching the street until her car disappeared into the rain. The next morning, the apartment was silent again, completely this time. No perfume, no echoes, no reminders. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel empty. I felt free. Freedom doesn't arrive loud. It slips in quietly, like air through a cracked window. The morning after she left for good, the apartment felt new. The hum of the fridge, the buzz of the lights, everything sounded sharper, clearer. Even my own breathing seemed unfamiliar. I'd spent so long reacting to her noise that I'd forgotten what calm actually sounded like. For weeks, nothing. No messages, no calls, no photos from unknown numbers. Just silence. I filled it with structure. Early mornings, long runs, new clients. Progress became my ritual. Each day I rebuilt a little more of myself, brick by quiet brick. Then, one afternoon, I got an email. Subject line, "Final notice." It was from the landlord. Megan's name was still on the lease, and she'd been listed as a co-signer for the renewal. The document required her signature to release me. I didn't want to contact her, but legal formality doesn't bend for peace of mind. I sent a short message. "Need your signature to finalize lease release. No discussion necessary." She replied within 10 minutes. "Meet me. One last time." I stared at the screen for a long moment. Old instincts whispered not to. But logic won. Closure isn't conversation, it's paperwork. We met at a small cafe near the courthouse. She looked different. Thinner, quieter. No jewelry, no performance. Just the same tired eyes from that night in the rain. She slid the papers across the table and signed without a word. I waited, expecting her to start talking. She didn't. Not until the very end. She said, "You really don't miss me?" I told her, "I miss who I thought you were." She nodded, almost like she'd been waiting for that answer. "You know," she said softly, "I thought power was about control. Turns out it's about calm. You always had that. I never did." I didn't respond. She stood, thanked me for the coffee, and left. That was the last time I saw her. Walking back to my truck, I realized something simple. Silence isn't absence. It's presence, reclaimed. It's the sound of control returning to where it belongs. And after years of noise, that silence was the loudest peace I'd ever known. Months passed. The seasons changed quietly, like the world had finally synced with my pace. I didn't think about her anymore, not in the heavy way I used to. She became background noise, a muted memory fading into static. Every now and then, I'd find one of her things buried somewhere in the apartment. A hair tie under the couch, a note inside a book. I'd throw them out without a second thought. That was progress, measured in silence. Work was steady. Life was balanced. I'd started running again before sunrise, the city still asleep. There's something pure about those hours. No phones, no demands, just breath and motion. It reminded me who I was before all the noise. Then one morning, out of nowhere, I got a letter. No return address. Handwritten. Inside, 2 sentences. I finally understand what you meant about feeling wanted. I hope you're doing better than I am. No signature, but I didn't need one. The handwriting was hers. I didn't keep it. I read it once, folded it, and dropped it in the trash. Some messages are just echoes. They don't need answers. That night, I went out to the balcony. The sky was clear, quiet. For a long time, I stood there, watching the city lights flicker against the dark. That used to feel lonely. Now it felt earned. People think peace is soft. It's not. Peace is a decision sharpened by every betrayal, every silence, every moment you chose not to react. It's discipline disguised as calm. I thought about her words. No touching until I feel safe. She built walls and called them protection. I built distance and called it peace. The difference is, mine held. Now, when I look at that empty space across the bed, I don't see loss. I see clarity. I see what happens when you stop begging to be wanted and start demanding to be respected, even if the only person who has to listen is you. I rebuilt my life from the inside out. No noise. No apologies. Just order. She wanted safety. I wanted honesty. Turns out, they were the same thing all along. And in the quiet that followed, I finally heard myself breathe. What would you have done in my place? If the story hit you, leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe. It only gets stronger from here.